With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, MOU agreements are signed to collaborate on water issues. We'll have all the details, but our top story today, the House Agriculture Committee approved its version of the Farm Bill after several hours of debate. The markup session highlighted some of the political differences over a general framework that Committee Chair Glenn G.T. Thompson offered. Representative Johanna Hayes, a Democrat from Connecticut, said the House bill did not include her party's priorities.
I think any one of us would have loved to have the opportunity to at least get one or two of our priorities in. And that's what we are asking for, and that is what we are working for, because I too had a field hearing in my district, and many of the things that my constituents talked about are not included in here.
Representative Kat Cammack of Florida did not mince words with her response to Hayes and other Democrats who argued that the bill is partisan.
Now, as we all know, facts don't care about feelings, so here are some facts. This bill, in the base text, includes over 40 Democrat-led initiatives. 40. And of those 40 initiatives, they were specific asks from Democrat members on this committee, the very same members who are claiming that this bill is a wholly partisan undertaking. To say that this is not a bipartisan bill when you know full well that this bill includes your requested priorities, well, back home we call that chicken shit.
Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts criticized the draft legislation, including its funding mechanisms that could take away money from nutrition programs.
We have Republican staffers apparently telling reporters that my colleagues and I are hunger weirdos. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you guys? I mean, really? Hunger weirdos? Are you kidding me? We're weird for thinking it's wrong that for people in this country to go without food? Guess what? I think it's weird that a single American goes hungry. I think it's weird in the richest country in the history of the world that we have people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And I think it's weird that we have hungry veterans and hungry seniors and hungry kids. And yeah, I think making it harder for people to eat is weird.
Thompson defended his funding proposals regarding nutrition spending.
I will say that the savings that CBO has identified that we've reinvested back into the Farm Bill, quite frankly, do not cut during the course of this 5 years of this Farm Bill any individual or family SNAP benefits. There's rhetoric on the outside that is amplifying that for their own purposes, but it is just not true.
The Senate also released its version of the Farm Bill, but has not begun markup. We head now into livestock news. Here's Hunter Ehrman with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of NCBA's Beltway Beef Podcast. I'm Hunter Ehrman. Well, today we're catching up with NCBA's president, Mark Isley, a rancher from the state of Wyoming. Mark, you've been traveling around internationally quite a bit here in the last few weeks. I know you were in Australia and you were also in Mexico. Tell us a little bit more about some of these international meetings that you have been participating in.
Well, they were critical for our industry and the protection of the American cattle industry, in particular, trade and animal health and sustainability. And so we had some very good meetings, especially with both Mexico, with the Trilateral, Mexico, Canada, and ourselves, and Australia with Cattle Australia's cattlemen organization. And they're concerned, just like we are, about the potential for disease and having vaccination banks and those sort of things in place. We're also trying to open up more markets for American products and make sure the trade is on a level playing field. And it was good to do that face to face. It's easier to say no to someone when you're looking them right in the eye than when you are doing it on an email or even over a Zoom type call. So they were very productive, a good interaction, and I think we made some headway in also preventing other things from happening from other countries like Brazil and Paraguay.
Well, Mark, let's start with your trip to Australia and your meeting with Cattle Australia. Tell us about what you saw, what was going on there, and what the conversations were like that you were having on the ground.
It was a fascinating trip. We were there during what they call their beef week. They have it once only every 3 years, and everybody from the country and internationally comes to attend to it. It's a giant trade show, cattle industry consortium, really a little bit of everything. A lot of the trade show people are actually NCBA vendors who attend our convention. Those discussions centered around the several things: animal health, traceability, trade, and environmental concerns, especially with activism. Some of the activism has them very concerned. And I spoke openly about the funding that is coming into some of those radical organizations and where that money is coming from people like ASPCA and HSUS.
So, what did you hear from your counterparts in Australia? How are the challenges that Australian producers face similar or different from what you encounter here in the United States?
Oddly enough, our challenge is very, very similar. The Australians have to deal with a very liberal government. Their parliament is very, very liberal in their thinking. They're well underrepresented in the ag community because, well, like us, they're just make up a small percentage of the population. So discussions about animal health, trade, those kind of things are kind of on the back table. So they have to really work hard. They were also very impressed with how NCBA manages our time and how we have inroads with our people. And I said, the way we have inroads with our congressional legislative staffers and representatives is the fact that we come in with science, knowledge, and truth. None of this, I think, I feel, I believe stuff. And that sells, and people understand that, and they like that. And the fact that they are an island, they're very concerned about the very same issues we have.
Well, it seems like that's a really good example of why it's important to have NCBA fighting every day for us in Washington. You know, without NCBA, we might be looking at a situation like Australian producers are facing. What are your thoughts?
Oh, we're so fortunate to have a good staff, a great staff in NCBA in DC. The Australians only have one representative to talk to their parliament. They are really overwhelmed and understaffed. So they were. I was very grateful I could come home and say that. But yeah, the problems are very similar: transportation costs, inflation. So many similarities between the countries. It was almost shocking.
Well, Mark, I know you also got a joint statement signed with your counterpart, the president of Cattle Australia. Summarize for us what's included in this statement and why it's so important.
Well, that's a great point. One of the things I overlooked was we signed the MOU for traceability, sustainability, animal disease, but we also included a pushback on lab cultured meat, the fake proteins. It was very strong on their part to step up and join us. We're trying to put a coalition of beef producing countries together to push back on that and make consumers aware of what they're actually getting.
Well, Mark, to your point about lab-grown proteins, we often get questions like, why is the industry so worried about something that doesn't exist on the market yet? What is your response to that?
Two things. One is we want consumers to be well informed. They need to have the proper labeling. They need to know what they're feeding their kids, what they're feeding their families. And second of all, we want to protect the beef supply. If they have some kind of a problem and they're doing a blended meat like they propose to do, they're going to blame beef if something goes wrong. They won't be accountable for the chemicals or the manufacturing process that they use. So it's absolutely critical to us that beef producers are represented, and we do our due diligence to find out what this stuff is really made of and what it could mean to consumers.
Well, now I'd like to shift to your trip to Mexico with CNOG, the organization that represents Mexican cattle producers. Mark, tell us a little bit more about that meeting and how the conversations there were different.
Well, you know, they were different, but they were also the same. They have problems with their government, their main government understanding. They tried to get the word out to out of their individual states what they're doing. They also have a problem with their version of our USDA. They were not forthcoming in telling them how to prepare for export when they were going to send livestock or produce out of the country. And they were very upset with their government. I thought it was reminiscent of some of the discussions and disputes we've had with our own USDA. I also reminded them sometimes USDA does a wonderful job and we work well on, but we push back on issues or not. So that was a surprise. And they were as engaged and discussed things more than I think I've ever seen them at one of these trilateral meetings. They're very aware of animal disease, foreign countries pushing a bad product. They want to make sure that trade is level, their own product is protected. You can't blame that. And I think one thing that surprised me is how good the quality of some of their cattle were. They have some pretty good cattle. It's not what you would stereotype to believe. So they want to be on equal footing. And of course, in our version, we want to make sure that trade is protected in America and the producers still have open access. So that's kind of the way it turned out. But a really great conversation, really great discussion, very honest discussions. I was pleased with that.
Well, Mark, to your point about trade, one of the big action items to come out of that meeting with CNOG was the joint letter being sent to the top trade officials of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Tell us about why that's so important and the action that the cattle industry is taking against Brazil.
Well, we want to make sure that Brazil does what they're supposed to. They don't track their animal disease. They don't report it timely. And so that's unacceptable for both American producers from protection of disease, but it's also unacceptable for consumers. They need to know what they're getting. So that was a huge concern for all three countries. And the fact that our USDA has ignored to some degree and decided not to prohibit those products from coming in to keep from hurting diplomats' feelings, I thought that was a pretty poor excuse when you put an entire industry at risk.
So what would you like to see USDA do in this situation?
They need to follow through and make sure that those countries that want to trade or sell us products do their due diligence, do their reporting on time, and have truthful reporting when they do. It's absolutely critical so we can build trust, and that's the way trade is done. That's the way trade should be done, and everyone has a level playing field, but safety comes first.
So what kind of signal does it send to our respective governments in Canada, the United States, and Mexico when these three cattle industry groups are all united on some of these issues?
It's a very powerful statement, and I think we're going to have some more international folks join us as a coalition to do these things. That speaks volumes, and I was really proud that NCBA led the charge on this.
What is your message to cattle producers and NCBA members who might be wondering, why are we spending this time engaging with producers in other countries?
Well, first of all, we're protecting our own product. We're protecting the reputation of our own product. And we're making sure that we continue to hold or even gain our market share. But we do it without violating trade rules or injuring our relationship with other countries.
Well, Mark, what is something that you take away from the experience of meeting producers and talking to them in other countries?
Be grateful you live in the United States. We do have some things that have been done really well, and we need to continue to build on that. And the things that aren't perfect, we need to continue to strive to fine-tune them and protect our producers. That, to me, is the message I come home with.
So, Mark, what is your message generally about the value of being involved in NCBA and having an organization to watch out for you and advocate for your interests here in Washington, D.C.?
The value of an NCBA membership is that someone is out there, either an officer or some of the staff is doing great legwork to make sure that these discussions are open and honest. And I can do that now when I'm a regular producer. I would not have known about these things. I would not know who was out there protecting me. I put my faith in NCBA. It is well placed.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us an update.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with today's AgNet West headlines, here's Brian German.
Water agencies have taken the first step towards more collaborative efforts to build water reliability. Executive Director of the California Farm Water Coalition, Mike Wade, explained there were two Memorandum of Understanding agreements that were recently signed.
There was one between Westlands and Metropolitan and the Friant Water Authority and Metropolitan. And then there was a separate one with the water blueprint for the San Joaquin Valley that was an MOU with Metropolitan. They're all kind of similar and related in what they're setting out to accomplish. And it's essentially their agreements to begin discussions on water supply challenges and opportunities and how the Valley can work closely with Metropolitan Water District on solving some of those challenges. So there wasn't anything specific that was set out in any of the MOUs saying that we're going to do this by then and invest in that. It was more the beginnings of discussions on how to work together, what some of the projects or problems to overcome might be, and begin discussions on how to do that. So I guess in a nutshell, it was an agreement to start a process.
FMC Corporation has announced a research agreement with Agrospheres to accelerate the discovery and development of novel bioinsecticides. The partnership combines Agrosphere's RNA technology with FMC's testing and market capabilities. FMC previously invested in Agrospheres for its microencapsulation technology to enhance biological crop protection based on RNA interference. This collaboration aims to advance sustainable agriculture and innovate in crop protection. Agrosphere's technology promises consistent results for RNA interference biomolecules, enhancing stability and performance. The partnership targets diverse biological actions to address issues of resistance. Agrospheres acknowledges FMC's vision in investing in next-generation technologies, emphasizing their partnership's potential for comprehensive product development. According to the 2024 Organic Industry Survey from the Organic Trade Association, U.S. sales of certified organic products reached $69.7 billion last year. OTA reports that the record-breaking number was an increase of 3.4%. Consumers prioritized health and sustainability, driving the demand for U.S. organic labeled products despite inflation. While pricing played a significant role in the market's growth, unit sales also increased for many organic products. Organic produce led sales, growing by 2.6% to $20.5 billion, with avocados, berries, and packaged salads among the top sellers. The grocery category followed with $15.4 billion in sales, driven by bakery items, breakfast goods, and baby food. OTA remains optimistic about the future of organic, despite challenges like emerging regenerative labels. A report was recently published by Chapman University's Demographics and Policy Department, highlighting some of the negative impacts of California's environmental regulations. The report specifically covers the challenges and successes of Latinos, their history in California, and present-day role in the economy. The researchers found that Latinos make up well over 90% of agricultural workers and over 50% of all California construction workers. With such a significant presence in agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, and construction, the report points out that Latinos are pivotal players within the state's carbon economy, and that in order for the state to achieve its carbon zero goals, it will need to significantly curtail those industries. The report goes on to state that Latinos are, quote, most threatened by California's draconian carbon neutrality initiatives. The full report is available from the Center for Demographics and Policy at Chapman University. UC Agriculture and Natural Resources will be hosting a no-till rice field day in Biggs next month. The event will offer an in-depth discussion that explores no-till drill-seeded rice planting and management and will take place at the Rice Experiment Station on Tuesday, June 18th. Registration will open at 9 in the morning and will be followed by a presentation on the types of no-till planting, agronomy, and challenges. Director of the Rice Experiment Station, Dustin Harrell, will provide a southern perspective on no-till rice, which will be followed by presentations on gibberellic acid treatments and no-till management and water savings. Cooperative Extension Rice Advisors Luis Espino and Whitney Brim DeForest will highlight no-till pest, disease, and weed management strategies. The field day will conclude with a grower case study along with a field tour. More information about the field day is available on the upcoming events page at agnetwest.com. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack was joined by U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan to announce the allocation of $300 million to 66 U.S. organizations under the new Regional Agricultural Promotion Program, or RAP, to build demand for American food and farm exports in diverse markets around the world. Some of those organizations were from here in California. Here are the comments from Secretary Vilsack and Senator Stabenow from that call.
Very pleased to announce the first round of funding under the new Regional Agricultural Promotion Program, which was launched in October of 2023 at the direction of Chairwoman Stabenow and Ranking Member Senator Bozeman, as part of USDA's commitment under the Biden-Harris administration to create more new and better markets at home and abroad. At that time, we authorized $1.2 billion in Commodity Credit Corporation funding to help American agricultural exporters diversify their footprint beyond traditional and established markets. We've long been a global leader in food and agricultural exports, but nearly 60% of our exports go to just 4 markets: China, Mexico, Canada, and the European Union. And as we've seen in recent history, there are devastating consequences if we rely on just a few large markets. We remain committed to our established customer base around the world, but we're also setting our sights on new growth opportunities in places like Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, where opportunities are significant and where U.S. exporters may not have yet established a firm foothold. These are part of the world where the GDP is rising, middle classes are expanding, urban populations are growing, and retail food systems are becoming more modern. All of this, we believe, creates a demand for greater variety of high-quality food and farm products, which the U.S. can produce. That's where WRAP comes in to play. By enabling U.S. exporters to expand their footprint in diverse and dynamic new markets, WRAP will help make them more competitive and resilient in an increasingly volatile global trading environment. In November, the Foreign Agricultural Service began accepting applications for the first $300 million of WRAP funding. We prioritized three areas: Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and Southeast Asia, and specifically set aside $25 million at a minimum to fund activities in Africa, which has some of the fastest growing economies but the lowest level of U.S. export market investment of any region in the world. Stakeholder interest in WRAP was evident and overwhelming. We received over $1 billion in project proposals for the $300 million that was available in funding. And today, I'm pleased to share that this funding will go to over 60 partner organizations that will help build demand for U.S. farm and food exports in high potential markets around the globe. We'll be funding hundreds of projects encompassing a wide and vast variety of products and markets, building demand for U.S. meat exports in Africa, to promoting U.S. olives in Latin America, to knocking down trade barriers for Hawaiian coffee in Japan. We know the potential is out there, but it will take time, consistency, and money to grow new and expanded markets. Our presence in these markets, building relationships with trading partners, and dedicated promotional activities are absolutely necessary, and USDA is pleased to be able to provide the startup capital to tap into these opportunities. We're serious about reversing the decline of small and mid-sized farms and building wealth that stays in rural communities, and exports obviously a critically important component of this. As you all know, USDA offers more than 20 different export-focused programs that provide grants, loan guarantees, technical assistance, and other export-focused support to producers and agribusinesses of all sizes and type. We're now proud to add WRAP to the toolbox, in addition to our new Assisting Specialty Crop Exports, or ACE initiative, under which FAS is now accepting proposals from partners to implement targeted projects to help specialty crop producers overcome trade barriers and expand export opportunities. The bottom line is that we want to make sure our foreign market development programs and agricultural trade in general work for the full spectrum of American agricultural producers, regardless of their size, their location, their product, or target market. By investing in exports, we're investing in the future of American agriculture and rural communities. And analysis have shown time and time again that for every dollar the U.S. government invests in our market development programs, exports are increased by more than $24. I venture to say that return on investment will only increase with these new programs and the innovative projects that they're supporting. We're excited about the partnerships that we've developed with the organizations receiving funding, and we appreciate the leadership and direction Senator Stabenow has provided in suggesting that we utilize the CCC for this important purpose. And with that, I will turn it over to the chairwoman for her remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Secretary Vilsack. This is a great day. I'm so appreciative of your leadership, and thank you to Undersecretary Taylor, Administrator Whitley, and your staff. And I'm so grateful that my partner, Senator Bozeman, joined me as we reached out to you. It's been terrific to see that we are all on the same page in terms of a vision of how we continue to support and grow our farmers and ranchers, our agricultural economy, and the fact that you're making this announcement today is such a big win for all our farmers. And you mentioned specialty crops, which, of course, I appreciate the focus on their unique needs as well, and also the fact that you're broadening to other countries. A number of years ago, I had a chance as the chair of the Agriculture Committee to lead a delegation to Africa and see all of the potential of what was happening there, and I know there's so much more that we can do together. So I'm very grateful for all of this. I think that it's important to also stress the fact that when we look at over the years what's happened, that creating new markets is absolutely critical. for our producers. And ag exports have grown from $66 billion back in 1996 to more than $175 billion last year, supporting more than 1 million jobs on and off the farm. And today's announcement is going to just add to that. You know, as we have done the hearings leading up to our work now on the Farm Bill, the top two things we heard about was trade promotion and strengthening crop insurance, those two things. And we heard over and over again that our commodity groups wanted us to be able to double the amount of resources available over the next 5 years on trade promotion, on marketing for large commodities, but also smaller operations. And so this announcement, I mean, what the USDA is doing is through Secretary Vilsack's leadership is going to meet that goal, the goal we have heard of from farmers and ranchers of wanting to double the resources available in the next 5 years to focus on selling our great produce, the things that we grow, the things that we make around the world. And it's very, very good news. So I just want to say thank you and look forward to continuing to work with you as we move forward on all the different fronts to make sure all of the organizations understand what resources are available and that we're working with them to create these new markets. And the bottom line is create new revenue for the folks that have the riskiest business in the world when they're reaching out and dealing with all the issues they have to deal with right now, with climate crisis hitting them right over their head, and all the other marketing issues in the global economy, all the various issues. This is a really important way to support them. So thanks very much.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Susan Littlefield was at the U.S. Meat Export Federation's summer meeting last week, and there she talked with USMEF Executive Board member and pork producer Jean Nome.
All right, Jean, let's talk about, I mean, you and I have had this conversation many times from a swine industry perspective, and I like how we're kind of taking a look at it, you know, kind of an overview of all livestock, but that's the importance of traceability. And this is something that all livestock producers need to be thinking about.
What's really important for us is preparing to be able to recover. And to recover means if we've got a foreign animal disease or something significant that's getting an ilk of regulatory, that we have to be prepared. Prepared means that you have a tool for ensuring good, reliable traceability data. And traceability data can be housed in what we call a centralized database or a database of record. And that database of record can serve a couple of functions. For the swine industry in particular, we've got two things we want to achieve in the case of a foreign animal disease event. One is give reliable, accurate data, really timely, to regulators to be able to identify where the disease is and help stomp it out. The other one is, well, you know, I'm 1,000 miles away from where the disease is. I could still continue, have continuity of business. And so the U.S. industry, with the help of some leaders from Iowa State and funding from the Pork Board, have established a program called the U.S. SHIP program. U.S. SHIP stands for Swine Health Improvement Program, based on the National Poultry Improvement Program, which has been in operation for darn near 100 years. And that one has an element of traceability, premise ID, where do pigs come from, who do I contact, all those kinds of things. And then also just some routine monitoring of to ensure what I'm using air quotes, freedom of. And if we can have that program in place across the nation, wherever the disease isn't, we have a better chance of maintaining continuity of business because of international trading partners, but also just confidence in the U.S. consumer.
I'm glad you brought up the export opportunities and our foreign partners that want to purchase. How does USMEF then and this all fit together to explain the traceability and share that information with those foreign buyers?
Yep. I'm going to use an example elsewhere to say how it could work here because some of the countries that have been exposed to African swine fever have worked with the USDA and other trading partners to create this concept of regionalization. This is the area where it ain't, if you will. And we need to figure out a way to mimic that here in the United States. And today, there's other things that are happening too. The dairy industry is really interested in traceability. The beef industry, as a result of what's going on in the dairy industry, is really interested in traceability. Now, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't a lot of people in the industry that are saying, you want to know what about my farm? And we've got a long haul. We got a long road to hoe here by the fact that we've got to gain confidence that information is going to be confidential, it's going to be secure, and it's going to be used by only the parties that we say it's going to be used by, and that is a confidence builder. So this database of record and how it houses data is really important. But I'm going to switch back again. The bovine industry is really interested in this traceability right now because they're being asked, especially the dairy, by the USDA and APHIS to say, all right, you have to do some testing before you move. You have to have special permits to move and all that. And all of that is really driving down to we've got to have a reliable system to track where livestock is, but also while maintaining that confidentiality and security of the data. This does two things. One, it maintains confidence in the food supply in the U.S. But two, we can go to our international trading partners, and I'm not sure of all the other industries what percent they are, but 30% of the pounds we produce in the U.S. in the pork industry go outside this country. And but we're here at the U.S. Meat Export Federation because this organization manages around $45 to $55 million, depending on the year, to really help us maintain trade and promote trade and help us understand the technical part of getting trading done. And they're telling us this is absolutely imperative that we figure out a reliable system so that we can maintain confidence in our trading partners and keep that stuff moving overseas.
I think you can use those in the pork industry as a perfect example. They're a part of the program. They understand the confidentiality of it. They understand how important that data is. It's just getting others and other species to welcome it as well.
Yeah, you reminded me of a good proxy here, Susan, that today the pork industry has something called Pork Quality Assurance Program. I'm a certified pig producer, meaning that I've been trained in pork quality assurance. I've got a farm that has been inspected and certified. We call it the Common Swine Industry Audited. That's the word I'm looking for. It's been audited. That data goes into a database, and the Pork Board administers the whole program, but Pork Board never sees that data. It's often a third party. And people are kind of concerned about, Pork Board and USDA affiliation, Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. I mean, it's all subject to that. Well, I think we've proven through a couple of efforts that that's not the case. But also, Dusty Odekoven, former state vet for the state of South Dakota, currently chief vet for the National Pork Board, has cited other examples where USDA and government agencies have private information. A good example is mining, as an example. Mining permits. We don't get to find out all of that stuff just through FOIA acts. So the government maintains confidential information as long as it's managed up front and categorized in the right way. So back to your point, we've got to make sure that we really develop confidence that we're doing the right stuff with this data. We've got it housed in a good spot because it's all critical part of making sure that we're prepared to stomp out the disease and create confidence where the disease ain't, if you will.
And it just shows right here, an organization like USMEF, where all of you are kind of together under one umbrella to better the financial side of producers here in the States. If you're all agreeing on it, it's like, okay, maybe I do need to look at it as a producer.
Yep. I think the other, so USMEF, beef, pork, and lamb promotion overseas, and important to all three of our red meats there. And they are helping us think about how do you leverage some of the base information. If you think about like a health paper to move animals from state to state, the concept is the same no matter what the species is. You just put different information in. Well, as an example, the Pork Board has financed the development of AgView. AgView can be this database of record, and at some level, I have to think that there's an efficiency that can be gained by some of the other species by using some of that platform to create their own database of record, their own traceability system. So we can, as you say, develop these systems as a red meat industry, not just as 3 or 4 different entities.
That was Susan Littlefield reporting. You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. Now for more news. A recent White House event featured announcements from the Agriculture Secretary on investments for rural infrastructure and economic development. Rod Bain reports.
A recent anniversary was recognized by Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and others associated with what is known as the Rural Partners Network.
The Rural Partners Network, by essentially putting people on the ground in those 36 communities across the United States, those 10 states, and Puerto Rico. People that are actually living, working, and focused on that particular area, working with community leaders to identify projects, and then working through the rural desk officers in all of the domestic-focused departments of government to make sure that they succeed.
The second anniversary of the network was among the items highlighted, and that coincided with a recent White House Community in Action event. To date, the Rural Partners Network has facilitated nearly $3 billion in investments within network-focused communities and the Puerto Rican Commonwealth. In addition, Secretary Vilsack made the following announcement in the realm of rural economic and infrastructure development.
Indeed, we are announcing $671.4 million of resources in 47 projects across 23 states. It's primarily in two categories: water and wastewater disposal systems, $118.5 million in 37 projects. We're also investing $552.9 million in electric infrastructure.
Also announced, up to $1 million in available grants through USDA's Rural Community Development Initiative to assist Puerto Rican communities within the Rural Partners Network to recover from presidentially declared disasters.
The $1 million that's going to Puerto Rico is designed in part to pay for and to encourage financial and technical assistance so that communities within Puerto Rico will be able to understand and appreciate how to access the various programs that we have at USDA, the Department of Transportation may have, EPA may have, the domestic operations. It's going to, I think, help focus on about 15 projects and 15 grants. It may be a housing program, it may be a community facility opportunity that communities are interested in. The application period in Puerto Rico starts May 14th and ends on June 28th. This is just an example of how we're trying to provide the resources on the ground to make a difference.
USDA offers an online dashboard providing data on rural investments, the where, the how much, and the progress among its data points. That is all found at this web address, www.rd.usda.gov/rural-data-gateway. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
And returning now to our top story, the House advances the Farm Bill. The House Agriculture Committee approved its version of the Farm Bill after several hours of debate. The markup session highlighted some of the political differences over a general framework that Committee Chair Glenn G.T. Thompson offered. Representative Johanna Hayes, a Democrat from Connecticut, said the House bill did not include her party's priorities.
I think any one of us would have loved to have the opportunity to at least get one or two of our priorities in. And that's what we are asking for, and that is what we are working for, because I too had a field hearing in my district, and many of the things that my constituents talked about are not included in here.
Representative Kat Cammack of Florida did not mince words with her response to Hayes and other Democrats who argued that the bill is partisan.
Now, as we all know, facts don't care about feelings, so here are some facts. This bill in the base text includes over 40 Democrat-led initiatives. 40. And of those 40 initiatives, they were specific asks from Democrat members on this committee, the very same members who are claiming that this bill is a wholly partisan undertaking. To say that this is not a bipartisan bill when you know full well that this bill includes your requested priorities, well, back home we call that chicken shit.
Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts criticized the draft legislation, including its funding mechanisms that could take away money from nutrition programs.
We have Republican staffers apparently telling reporters that my colleagues and I are hunger weirdos. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you guys? I mean, really? Hunger weirdos? Are you kidding me? We're weird for thinking it's wrong for people in this country to go without food? Guess what? I think it's weird that a single American goes hungry. I think it's weird in the richest country in the history of the world that we have people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And I think it's weird that we have hungry veterans and hungry seniors and hungry kids. And yeah, I think making it harder for people to eat is weird.
Thompson defended his funding proposals regarding nutrition spending.
I will say that the savings that CBO has identified that we've reinvested back into the Farm Bill, quite frankly, do not cut during the course of this 5 years of this Farm Bill any individual or family SNAP benefits. There's rhetoric on the outside that is amplifying that for their own purposes, but it is just not true.
The Senate also released its version of the Farm Bill, but has not begun markup. That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.